Good day, goeiedag, welcome, wamgelegile. My name is Nondumiso Peñane, a lecturer at the Faculty of Law at Stellenbosch University. In this presentation, we're going to be focusing on the 4-year LLB. So if you're interested in enrolling for that program, this presentation is what you should watch in order to find out what that entails. We're going to be talking about the following aspects in terms of providing you with an overview of the degree. First, we're going to be looking quickly at the various knowledge and skills that are provided in our 4-year LLB program. Second, we're going to look at the admissions requirements as well as the selection process. Then we're going to talk about the application process. And finally, we're going to talk to you about where you can find further information. With that being said, in terms of knowledge, what would you as a 4-year LLB student potentially gain from enrolling in a program like this? Well, the obvious point to make, and if you've seen any of the other presentation, you would have heard us reiterate this point over and over again, is that you as a 4-year LLB student are going to be exposed to all the major areas of law. In addition to this, you have the choice of making a few social or economics and management sciences modules to get a bit of exposure into those fields. So you can take subjects in those fields in order to gain exposure. But importantly, as a 4-year LLB student, you are taking exactly the same modules as any other law program. And then, of course, you will also have options in terms of electives in your final year. You can then start focusing on specific semester modules that provide more advanced options in terms of the law. And finally, whilst not necessarily unique to the 4-year LLB program, and given how the programs are structured, it is usually a little bit easier for 4-year LLB students to participate in the various exchange programs that also happen in the second semester of your final year. So this is something to keep in mind as you make your choice. In terms of the various skill sets that you will gain, there is critical thinking, reading and writing skills. These are part of your degree. And in this sense, the 4-year LLB is not necessarily unique. You would gain these same skills in all the other programs as well. But that being said, one of the hallmarks of the 4-year LLB is that it takes place over 4 years, as opposed to, for instance, a student who does a BA or BCom law at an undergraduate level for 3 years and then does the 2-year LLB program thereafter. In this instance, the students would spend an accumulative period of 5 years at the university. The 4-year LLB will take you 4 years, and so you would have a shorter time frame in which to really apply yourself within the various modules that you are going to be exposed to. The 4-year LLB is for students who really want to get in and out of the tertiary education system as soon as they can, so that they can start getting into the exciting opportunities that follow after graduation, such as, for example, practical training if you want to go the direction of becoming an attorney. So that would mean that you would get admitted and be practicing as soon as possible. Now, in terms of the admissions requirements that you need to be aware of as a 4-year LLB candidate, we require a 70% average, which then excludes life orientation. We also require 60% in English or Afrikaans home language or 70% in English or Afrikaans first additional language. But please, prospective law students, realize that these are only the minimum requirement. And so on that point, I want to emphasize that we get a significant number of applications, which we will touch on in a moment. The point we really want to get across to you is that if you meet the minimum requirement, this at least places you in a position where your application can be looked at as a potential candidate for us to select. But it does not guarantee that you will, in fact, find a place in the program. So As you hopefully already realize, your grade 11 marks are particularly important. But obviously, in grade 12, it is in your best interest to maintain your marks so that you meet those minimum requirements. But in terms of the marks that we select on, you want to try to do as well as you possibly can because you are coming up against a large number of other candidates from across the country. And if we quickly turn back to the slide, you will notice there, almost in small fine print at the bottom, that we allude to a point that we make earlier, which is that if you decide as a first year, 4-year LLB student to take economics as a module, which is one of your additional modules that you can elect to enroll in, then you will need to meet the requirements of the Faculty of Economics and Management Sciences, namely to then obtain a minimum of 60 to 69% in mathematics in order to be allowed to take economics. And just on that point, I want to emphasize that when you are deciding on different modules or thinking about different modules you might be interested in taking along with your core law modules, please consult the applicable calendar, otherwise known as the yearbook of the faculty, for specific information on those modules. But also keep in mind that if you are wanting to take modules that are housed in other faculties, they also have their own yearbooks with specific information regarding the requirements that you need to have achieved at school in order to be able to take the modules at university level. So just keep that in mind, that you don't necessarily only consult the yearbook for the law faculty. You might need to also look at a few additional yearbooks from different faculties as well. In terms of selection, you can see us emphasizing that we select purely on academic merit. There is a specific presentation focusing on selection, so please have a look at that presentation if you have not done so yet. But yes, we don't look at anything else. It is purely based on academic merit. Also keep in mind that we only have 120 places available for our 4-year LLB program. I must mention that every year the number of candidates do vary, but this year we had several thousand candidates that applied during this year for those 120 spots, and obviously we cannot accommodate all of them. Now, the majority of those students did not meet our minimum requirements, but there was still a significant number of students who did meet those requirements. And in the end, we started working through approximately 2,000 applications in order to get to our 120 candidates who we sent an offer to. So, if you recall what I said a little bit earlier about the importance of doing as well as you possibly can in grade 11 and not simply relying on the fact that you meet the minimum requirement, that piece of information confirms why it is important to make sure you do as well as possible. You can also access a wealth of information through marties.com, and speaking on that point, you will see there the various websites that you can go and have a look at for further information. And I would also like to just emphasize, both to you, the prospective students, and possibly also your parents or guardians who might be watching this presentation, please know that Stellenbosch University in general is incredibly well versed in terms of providing information online. If the website you are looking at ends in an ac.za and preferably also has the Sun part for Stellenbosch University, it's one of ours. You just have to make sure you are not landing on a website from a previous year, but if you are assured that it is a recent website, then please have a look around there. You will most likely find all of the queries that you need addressed in the different websites, and there at the top again, matis.com/law. That's our website, specifically at sun.ac.za. And then also the calendar, as I mentioned earlier, which is the yearbook that will also provide information about the modules on offer in the law faculty, but also at the different faculties across the university. So on that note, I hope that you have enjoyed this presentation. It has been remarkably short, and the purpose of it has been to provide you with the bare essence of the facts. I will also be speaking in broader terms about why one would consider a career in law and what you can actually get out of that as a potential career choice in one of the other presentations. So please have a look out for that particular presentation where we get into a bit more detail about that topic. Best of luck with regards to wherever you currently are in terms of your schooling. I hope that it is going to go well for you. Work hard, stay calm, stay focused, persevere, and we hope to see you soon. From our side, thank you, Enkosi, Danki.